Hello and good evening out there in podcast land, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Dennis Carroll, and this is episode 96 of Hunting the Shadows. I want to welcome you all in here tonight. We're going to be definitely hunting some very interesting shadows tonight. We've got a good special guest that we're going to bring on, and we're going to talk about his book and some interesting angle that he has on this. Last week we had Werewolf Wednesday. Well, this week is definitely Vampire Wednesday, okay? Absolutely. And we're going to be talking vampires tonight, so you might want to cover your neck and get your cross and your holy water out a little bit there just in case, okay? Then make sure nobody sneaks up on you from behind. Want to welcome everybody coming into the chat room here. Hello, Crystal. Midwest Night Watchers, Shiro, and Blue Eyed Bandit, Mr. Kyle Smith. Hello, Dragonfly. Let's see who else we got checking in. Demaria, hello. And we're slowly starting to fill. The grotto is filling up here, folks, definitely. And we're going to have an interesting night ahead of us. And I want to make a couple of announcements here before we get started. And we will definitely be dropping another video for the Shadow Hunter Club, okay? We will be dropping another one very soon, sometime this week, so be watching for it. And I hope you enjoyed the last one when I talked about my encounter with the two Cherokee Skinwalker sisters. That was a fascinating story. If you missed it, you might want to go back and check it out. If you are a member of the Shadow Hunters Club, you definitely will get a chance to listen to that video. It was a very interesting encounter that I had many years ago, and I haven't talked that much in depth about it, and I wanted to give that something special to the members out there, okay? And I hope you enjoyed it. And we had a great show this past Monday with my good friend Gerald Fountain. When we traveled down the road less traveled, we journeyed down that way, and we talked about personal poison. That's right. When poison is poison, but when it gets personal, okay, that's when you gotta really watch it. So we talked about personal poison. It was a great show. If you missed it, go back and please check it out in my library, okay? As a matter of fact, I even put a couple of movies in that library. So you can go on there and watch free movies, folks, okay? Got a couple of them on there. Gonna add a few more free movies for you to watch. So go check them out in the library on Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel. Okay, that's where it's happening. That's where you need to be. Okay, absolutely. And I will definitely be appearing tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Aquarius Rising, South Africa, with my good friend Chantel Mayberg. I will be talking about dark angels and demons. You do not want to miss this show, okay? It's going to be fascinating stuff. Dark angels and demons, all right? That's tomorrow on Aquarius Rising, South Africa, okay? Don't be sure to check it out and be looking for that. And Friday night, we're going to be talking about some interesting stuff. You want to check that out on Paranormal Point of View. That's at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All those shows at 9 o'clock, except for that one with Chantel. That's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's not in her part of the world, but over here, it's about 1 in the afternoon, okay? So go check that out. It's going to be a fascinating show. Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. That's a fascinating subject. And speaking of fascinating subjects, anyone that knows me knows that I've had, a lot of dealings with vampires. I have actually, I think, met some vampires. I've actually hunted vampires. I've actually talked with people who have had interaction with vampires. Vampires are real, folks. I mean, this sounds like something Hollywood come up with, but no, it's not. It sounds like something in folklore. And folklore, I've said this so many times before. Folklore is a great indicator of a lot of this stuff. It has a lot of truths to it that we need to look at very closely. It's got a lot of clues to things that we need to understand, especially when it comes to the paranormal and the supernatural. Absolutely. And all of this, what do I always say? All of this, in some weird, strange way, is connected. Okay. It definitely is. The connections run far and deep. just like this fellow we're going to be talking to here shortly, who has probably spent a lot of his life, as I have, down deep in rabbit holes, looking at a lot of this stuff up. And definitely that's where it's at. A lot of the research is found in places like that and out in the field as well. Absolutely. Those are two of the main ways to obtain experience and knowledge. They both go together. You can't really have one without the other. It's not good to, anyway. As I've said in the past, you can learn a lot from books, but it's a lot more when you have experience. That's the greatest teacher of all, definitely. Anyway, I'm going to bring this fellow up here now. His name is Keith Evans, and he has written a couple of books. I'm going to read the back of one of the books for you. It's called Vampire, Dead or Alive, okay? And it says that this is not a book about one individual vampire, but a book about the characteristics of all vampires. So this is a study in vampires, okay? That's what you're looking at. And you need to get books like this. You need to buy books like this and read them to understand a lot of what the real true characteristics of these things are that are going on in this world. We really have to be very careful, how we take and approach subjects and stuff like that, and for some reason I have disappeared off of the screen there. I don't know why, but let's see what's going on here. Hold on a moment. Seem to have lost a picture. Okay, hold on, everybody, just a second. Let me go back out and come back in again and see what's going on with this. There we go. I'm back now. Okay. Had to go out and come back in again. I don't know what happened. It threw me. That's StreamYard for you. It does some weird stuff. Or maybe the vampires don't want us talking about them tonight. And that might be some of it too. Absolutely. All right. Well, without further ado, I'll let him tell you more about his book here, okay? I'm going to bring him up and let me give you just a little bit more rundown on who this fellow is. His name is Keith Evans. He has a bachelor's degree in chemistry from the University of Central Florida. He is a retired Army reservist and a retired forensic scientist. He began completing paranormal research as a young child. We talked about that before the show. He's been in this a long time. And he hopes you will keep an open mind concerning all vampires. Yep, definitely. We got to keep an open mind for these types of things. No doubt about it. And without further ado, here is Mr. Keith Evans. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
All right. I want to, let everybody kind of give everybody a little rundown on just who you are, a little bit on your bio before we start here.
Well, I started out in paranormal when I was 4 years old. I would visit a relative's house. The house had been in the family since about the 1880s, and it had the old decorative wainscoting, which is it's like wood that comes up chair level within a room, and it has the glossy type finish, clear finish where you can see the wooden grain. And as a 4-year-old, that just made me so happy. And, it's my parents couldn't understand. They just thought, well, if this kid is getting happy overseeing part of a house, he's probably got some type of problems and won't mount to much. And some of my relatives still think that today. But anyway, I didn't know then, but it's called empathic abilities. And I think it's much stronger when you have a relative. And since that house had been in my mother's side of the family, I think that's the reason why I could pick up on the fact that they were very proud of their wainscoting. They were very proud of that part of the house and the way it looked. And that's what I was feeling when I would go to visit that house. So it got so bad, my mother wouldn't let me go to that house anymore. That's how bad it got. So, anyway, after that, I pretty much put everything on the back burner. I didn't let my family or my parents know anything about my paranormal research or what I was doing or anything. I didn't even bring it up. Very rarely brought it up. And when I was, I guess, middle school, there was a TV program on when I got home from school. It was a British sitcom called Dark Shadows. And it had a main character called Barnabas Collins, who was a vampire.
Yeah, I remember that
And
well.
I could never understand how a vampire can do what they do. And Barnabas Collins was, to me, he was my hero. I just thought, I wish I had the superpowers that a vampire has, the ability to shapeshift or the ability to dematerialize or the ability to stand in front of a mirror and not have a reflection. I just thought that was so interesting. I thought they were more like superheroes. And I always wondered how they did that. And as I got older and went through all the classes at UCF to become a chemistry, get a chemistry degree, I took different astrophysics type courses, and I've taken quantum mechanics and all types of physics and genetics. And that allowed me to look back and say, well, now I know how Barnabas Collins was able to do what he did. So that's why I wrote this book, because I didn't know of any other books that were out there about vampires who look at their traditional uh, superpowers or characteristics or abilities and then try to explain whether they're more like a dead person or a living person, and also try to explain how they do what they do. And that's my book. It's about
So you
11
were
chapters.
kind of looking at it from a scientific point of view, right?
Yes. And each chapter kind of covers a certain historical characteristic about a vampire, like, say, how does the vampire dematerialize? And then I look at, can a living person dematerialize? No. Can a dead person dematerialize? No. So it's not a characteristic of neither a living or a dead person. Then I try to explain how they dematerialize. And the only way I could see that anyone could dematerialize is that they can somehow, they have the technology to bend space and time, and they go back to when their soul was just a soul and was living outside of a
So
biological
you
body. And that allows them to dematerialize.
do you think that they are utilizing something like portals through space and time to do this?
Well, to bend space or time, you need a powerful energy, and they can either use like a small black hole, but when they do bend space or time, they're only bending it for their body. It's localized. It's not like they're bending space and time for the whole room or everyone in the environment. They're only bending space and time for their physical body. And then they go back in time to
Yes.
when they're they're they were actually not in a physical body. They were in just a spirit. And being a spirit like that, you disappear. You cease to exist. But I feel that reincarnation takes place many times over. And right now, we might be in the body of a human, but in the past, we could have been in the body of a bat. We could have been in the body of just about every animal that you can imagine.
So you think
Did
this
you
is
have
a
a
lot of
question?
spiritual attributes to this, right? There's a spirituality to it.
Well, reincarnation is the fact that we are born again many times over, and each time we could be in a different biological body, but we could spend some time just as a spirit. For instance, a lot of people think when you do paranormal research, you can call up any one of your dead relatives. Some of your dead relatives might have already been reincarnated and might be in with a living person today, so they may not be available as uh, a soul or a spirit because they might actually be in a physical biological body, and that's what I'm looking at when I look at vampires. I don't see a vampire as being. Uh, there are many things. They're a living biological entity, just like human beings. They're also a cryptid, and they're also paranormal. And I really feel that they're extraterrestrial. I feel that they came from a planet that had a dwarf star. That meant that during the daylight in their Goldilocks zone, their star was no brighter than our moonlight is on a full moon night. So that's the reason why their DNA cannot stand bright sunlight here on Earth, and it'll cause them to denature. And denature is just the unraveling of your DNA. So that's the reason why they have to avoid direct sunlight. And there's a possibility that they may have a protection bubble which allows them to, say, be in a room without direct sunlight and still not denature. Their RNA and their DNA will not denature if they've had the technology to be able to bend space and time. They might have the technology to have a certain amount of protection bubble which keeps light from touching their body. And that also goes to the reason why they may not have a reflection in a mirror. They might not have a reflection in the mirror because their protection bubble, or whatever you want to call it, around their body bends light so it does not touch their body. That's the reason why they don't have a reflection in the mirror. There's also other theories about that. It could be that they're in another dimension, and it could be that they're not physically there because they are sending their uh, audio and their visual directly into your brain. They're telepathically communicating with you. So that could be from another dimension, or it just could be from another place and just not physically in the room with you. But you might see them and think they're physically there, but they're not.
Well, I actually once met a vampire, and and it was in daytime. It was late in the day. It was on a cloudy, kind of a dark day, And I asked her, I said, if you're a vampire, what are you doing out in the daytime? And she said, well, we can come out in daytime if we want to. It's not out in strong sunlight, but we like to come out more at night because that's when we're most powerful. That's when we're at our most 100%, you might say. And I thought that was very interesting because evidently, that like what you're talking about here, the sunlight may inhibit their powers and their ability to, do things. Um, and
Well, it will
we are
actually
product
kill. It will
we
kill the
are product
vampire
of our environment.
to be out in the sun.
We are a
It'll
product
actually
of
kill
our
them.
environment. Yeah,
Now, to me, vampires have probably been, not all, but some of them have been here for thousands of years on Earth, and they probably have interbreeded with humans.
we have a
So
good
not
system.
all vampires are 100% vampire. And I think the ones that have interbreeded with humans have certain abilities, and Others don't have any abilities at all. So you might run across a person who feels they're a vampire, but who knows? They might be mixed blood and not fully a vampire. And that's one reason why they can tolerate sunlight and it doesn't denature their DNA.
Mhm. Well, speaking strictly as a demonologist, demons do not cast a shadow. They have no shadow because they're not material beings. In other words, sun or moonlight would shine through them. They don't have a shadow. They're spiritual in that concept. Do you think a lot of the vampires is a spiritual being that has a spirituality to it more so than a physical thing?
I think vampires are very physical if they choose to be physical. I think, like I say, if they bend space and time to back to when their soul was just a soul and not within any type of biological body, then, they're only going to be electromagnetic energy. But if they're actually here as a physical body, then I think they will cast a shadow. And I think they will be as physical as you and I.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about because they can material. I have seen these things do that. I have actually seen this with my own eyes. That's a story for another time. But I have seen them materialize and dematerialize like this. And certain vampires are supposed to be able to turn into a fog or smoke or mist light. Not just bats, and they can supposedly turn into wolves. So they are supreme shapeshifters. They can shift shapes when they want to, and they materialize in whatever shape they want to do. That is part of the materialization of a spiritual nature. It can look like what it wants to. It's very much like the skinwalkers, the witches we've talked about. They can do this. Witches who put on the werewolf belt become werewolves and all this other stuff. They're what they're doing is they're changing their form and shape shifting into what their spiritual reality is, and going into a physical reality. That's why they can choke you or bite you. After a while, they can do that to you. They can rip you apart. Werewolves will tear you to pieces. Because they are definitely physical in that form, but there is a part of them that is spiritual, not non-physical. And I think that's a very interesting aspect of these things. Don't you think so?
Well, I've only really had one encounter with a possible vampire that I know of, and that was at the 1880 Victorian. And I'm only saying that because no one else could see the young lady, only I could see her. And I didn't know that at the time. And I thought she was the owner's daughter. The owner had given me permission to do paranormal research and written permission to do a book. And I just thought that that was his daughter. And I seen her twice when they came down. I was there for like 2 months in 2020. This was the 1880 Victorian in St. Augustine, Florida. And the owners call it the 1880 Victorian. It's actually a 3-story Victorian style house that was built, townhouse that was built in 1883. And when I was there, I found out later on when his daughter showed up the third time I was there for like 2 months. So they came down and visited 3 times while I was there. And then I said, I looked at him and I said, I didn't know you had 2 daughters. And he said, no, only one daughter. And I said, well, who was that young lady with you out there on the porch that time that you wanted me to sit down, but there was 4 rocking chairs and your sister, your wife, you, and your daughter was in a rocking chair, and I didn't want to chase the young lady out of the rocking chair. So I just said, no, I'll go on in. I'll talk to you all later. And when I asked the young lady, are you still in school? She didn't answer me, but you answered me and told me, no, I'm out of school. So I thought that was kind of strange. But apparently they saw no young lady. And the young lady had curly, either brown or black hair, very attractive young lady, probably around 18, 19, 20, early 20s maybe. And she had this tight, uh, kind of curly hair, kind of like Shirley Temple had when she was younger and used to do the tap dancing up and down the steps. And she had very light white skin, which everyone else in that family kind of had brown skin from the hot Florida sun. Right? You either turn your skin brown or red. So I think she may have been either a ghost or spirit or a vampire who was telepathically sending her vision and her audio to me, and that's the reason why no one else could see it. But I didn't really know at the time what was going on. You know, when you're doing paranormal research, you think, is someone actually trying to get over on me? So I write a book about it, and then they can come out and expose me later and say, oh, that was just someone we planted to see if we could figure out whether he could figure out whether she was real or not. You always wonder. You never know.
No,
So
you
it
don't
was
know.
something that I did not even think about much until I talked to the family and asked them, and
You know, these
to
things
see
seem
if
to
any of them was going to say that they knew who she was.
yeah, they seem to seek out the person who's most sensitive to them in many ways. You know, that's probably why some of them did see her and you did. You were more sensitive to that, and they seem to seek out these people like that in certain situations, definitely. And if you're, like you say, you know, being sort of empathic toward them, they feel like probably that you are more familiar with them. You know what I'm saying? That they have a more connection to you, kind of in that way. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's probably a situation where some people might be able to see within the infrared um, part of the light spectrum, but
Mhm.
most human beings cannot.
Or you
And it's
just
a possibility that I have the ability to see within the infrared light spectrum enough that I was able to pick up on her as if she was a living being. I couldn't tell her she didn't look any less real than anyone else that I was talking to. So it could be that I'm just able to see infrared spectrum a little bit more than everyone else, and I was able to see her. But she was trying to be helpful, and she wasn't going to out me by talking to me and then having me talk in the thin air in front of the gentleman and his family who had given me written permission to write the book and to do paranormal research. So it was almost like she was trying to protect me, but at the same time, she was sitting there. But I'm not sure if this young lady even knew that I could see her. I didn't think she thought I was going to be able to see her either. And she just giggled a lot, almost like she just thought the whole thing was funny that I was able to see her.
yeah, well, she probably did. You know that she was kind of like slipping one past them, kind of. You know, these things will do that. I've actually encountered demonic spirits that will definitely make fun of you, laugh at you sometimes too. If they think they're pulling something over on you, they get the giggles definitely. But you know, the interesting thing about all this, Keith, is that you know that this entity, like I said, sought you out instead of everybody else. It was trying to you know connect up, communicate with you. You know, and you have to be very careful though sometimes when you are communicating with some of these things, because, like I said, they can be. You know, I don't know if you believe in the demonic, but these things can be very. Shall we say, malevolent sometimes in their attributes towards it.
Well, I feel there are good and evil living people, and I'm sure there's good and evil dead people too. I just haven't run across it through my travels. Now, the only thing I can tell you about the only bad thing that happened while I was doing paranormal research at the 1880 is my phone kept getting very warm. So finally, it just stopped functioning. And I took it to a gentleman that was supposed to work on cell phones there in St. Augustine. And he said he could not retrieve the pictures or the videos that were on the phone. And I also went to, at that time, I'm trying to think. I think it was Verizon. I took it to them and they said they couldn't retrieve any uh, of the photos or videos that was on the phone. They said the phone was destroyed, and I had to buy another phone. So that was $200, and I was angry. So I went back to the 1880 Victorian, and I kicked the ghost of spirit out of the house who had done that. And I was angry, and I told them to leave the house if they're going to ruin my phone. And about, I say, a year and a half later, I thought about it and I thought, sometimes these phones have defective batteries that'll cause them to heat up, and some phones will catch on fire. So I apologized. It was the night before I went to sleep. I think it was March or April of 2021. So it was just about a year later from the time that I was at the 1880 doing my paranormal research in 2020. And I apologized. I said, I might have been wrong. Maybe the phone was just defected, and maybe I'm blaming it on the paranormal, because we always have a tendency to blame anything that happens bad on the paranormal. So when I got up the next morning, I turned my phone on, and my phone was maxed out. And I thought, how can that be? How can I be maxed out on all my storage? I looked, every single photo and video that I had lost on my old phone was back on my new phone. And that's something that both the gentleman that I went to said to fix phones said there was no way he could bring them back. And I also went to Verizon, and they said there was no way they could bring those photos back. So after I apologized, the next morning they all were back on my telephone.
Well, I've actually had that happen many times, Keith. Going into a place to investigate whether, whatever the situation, spiritual research, demonology, whatever. You can walk into a place with a full battery and it just drain immediately. I've had that happen many times with different, not just phones, but with, tape recorders,
But this is different, though. This is
meters.
different than having a
Yeah,
battery drained. I have
I think they're
batteries drained a
tapping.
lot too, but this is
Yeah.
different. This is all the photos after the phone heated up and I had to buy a new phone. I had lost all the photos I had taken on my old phone and all the videos I had taken there at the 1880. But then right after I apologized, the next morning, they all were on my new phone. And that's something that I was told by two different individuals. One was a specialist in cell phones there in St. Augustine, and the other was Verizon. And they said, because my phone was so badly damaged, there was no way they could transfer the pictures on. So I think there was a connection between apologizing to the ghosts and spirits and those photos showing up on my phone the next morning. And I was very happy because I wanted those photos. So I was very happy about that.
That is strange, definitely. It's almost as if it tried to cooperate with you after that. But yeah, these things, and cell phones are very susceptible to overheating. A lot of them are, especially certain brands are. I know iPhone is one of them, by the way. And you can also put them, like, if you leave them in your car on a hot summer day, that's not a good idea either. They can lock up on you doing that. So they're very susceptible to temperatures extremes as well. Not just water and all that other stuff, which they're very susceptible to too, unfortunately. But I think they're also susceptible to electrical charges, and a lot of these things, when, like we were talking about earlier, when they transcend space and time and bend space and time, I call it like almost parting a curtain and walking through, to a certain extent. When they do that, there's got to be a lot of energy involved in that, whatever type of energy it may be, electrical, whatever. Definitely that's going to have some kind of reaction on electrical equipment close by, don't you think so?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, hello there, Chantel. We're just talking about our show tomorrow, inviting everybody to watch. It's good to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Did any of your guests have a question for me? My eyes aren't that good. if a question comes up,
I
please
will
repeat it because I can't see it.
definitely let you know if they have any questions coming up here.
All right, well, let them know if they have any questions. I'm more than willing to try to answer their questions. And
Yeah.
I got my book here. I just show people that is my book, Vampires Dead or Alive.
Yeah, that's
And
I just put that up on the. You might not seen it. I put put a picture of you. We're gonna talk about your other book too. I think that's the Hayes House. Um, that you wrote.
yeah, the Hayes House Ghost or People too. That was a book about a house in Apalachicola that's still standing there. It was built in 1908 by Jeff Buck. And today, the new owner actually calls it the Buck House. They no longer call it the Hayes House. And the Buck family lived there from like 1908 until 1922. Mr. Buck passed away. And then the Hayes family bought it at the beginning of World War II for the United States in 1942. And Kathleen Hayes was the longest member of the family to stay there. And she stayed there until 1996 when she went into assistant care living facility. And then they sold the house. So she lived there a little over 50 years. And I would say she was the one that I received the strongest amount of paranormal data from, Kathleen Hayes. So I really felt that it was a heartwarming story about the ghosts of spirits from two families, the Buck family who built the Hayes house, and then the Hayes family who had lived there for at least one of them for close to 50 years, over 50 years. And
That's
I
very
think
interesting.
that as a ghost and spirit, they come back from heaven or wherever they're at to protect and look after the house. During Hurricane Michael, the water came up from the river from the northeast and the bay from the southeast and stayed about a half a block away from the Hayes house in both directions. So it looked like the Hayes house had some protection and it had very little wind damage. So I was very concerned about the Hayes house when I was when Hurricane Michael hit because I thought, I just released this book the same year, and I guess it was the last of August, and I thought, here the hurricane's going to come along, and if the house gets destroyed, the book won't be worth as much. I think having a book about a house that exists makes the book more valuable, at least to me. So anyway, there was no damage to the Hayes house whatsoever. And after Hurricane Michael, as soon as I was able to get a rental car, I went to Apalachicola and I wanted to see for myself that the Hayes house was okay, and it was. And the owners did not live at the Hayes house. It was like a second home for them. And they rented out the Airbnb rooms at the Hayes house, which is a 3-story Victorian house. And they also rented out space for artists to come, a quiet place for them to paint. So Apalachicola is also a big art town. So anyway, while I was there, the young lady who was cleaning the rooms for the Airbnb, uh, she had the owner on the phone, and she told the owner that Keith, the gentleman that wrote the book, is here, and his place that he lived at got destroyed during Hurricane Michael. And at that point in time, he offered me an opportunity to rent the third floor apartment, and I did. So I was in the third floor apartment from about the end of October until the owners actually sold the Hayes house. I guess it was early, either March or April of 2019. So I lived there for about 3 or 4 months, and it was great living there. I lost all my paranormal equipment during Hurricane Michael. It all washed away during the storm surge. So I was only able to purchase a millimeter and a thermal imager, a flare thermal imager. And that's the only two things I had. I had actually tried, I had purchased a Ovilus 5B, but they claimed it got lost in the mail. And then they claimed that, anyway, that they had sent it, but I never received it. And it took me like 6 months to get my money back. And by that time, I was no longer living at the Hayes house. But I would have loved to have had my Ovilus 5 while I was living there. But while I was living there, there's a lot of paranormal activity going on. You don't have to be doing paranormal research whatsoever. You can just be, you know, laying down and you can hear someone run across the floor like they're stomping their feet, and you're looking right out and see nothing. And I even got up and the floor. This was the third floor apartment. The third floor apartment had carpet, and I'm a little over 200 pounds, and there I could not stomp my feet the way the ghost of spirit did. That carpet just absorbed it. And while I was there, I heard uh, the third floor apartment has a entrance that comes up from the second floor, and the second floor hallway is actually the back stairway, second floor back stairway room. The door from that leads up the steps to the third floor apartment. And a couple times while I was sleeping, I heard someone run up the steps. And I'd jump up in bed and look, and there'd be no one at the top of the steps. I'd get out of bed and look, because sometimes I thought, well, suppose I forgot to lock the door and somebody's coming in and they're just looking around to see, they figure, well, nobody's up in the attic. I like to see what the attic looks like. So anyway, that happened a lot. Uh, just a short period of someone running up the steps. And I could also hear somebody running up the top of the front stairway room steps. That would be the larger steps. Um, and the Hayes house, the steps were kind of like, had two landings before you got to the top. You'd
Mhm.
walk up like 3 or 4 steps and there'd be a landing. Then you turn 90 degrees and you walk up the length of steps. There'd be another landing before you got to the second floor. Then you'd make another 90-degree turn and there'd be 3 or 4 steps and you'd be on the second floor. So there were two landings to the front stairway steps, or, the stairway. And I could I would try to recreate what I would hear, and while I wasn't there in the hallway, but when I was upstairs in the third floor apartment, I could try to recreate what I heard, and it would be like somebody clunking on the first 2 steps before you got to the second landing, and then running up the 3 or 4 steps until you got to the second floor. And I could do that with my feet. So someone could have physically done that. They might have got to that point and said, "Oh my," and ran the rest of the way. Because there was a gentleman and his daughter, living in the one second floor apartment. So anyway, I try to go back and see if there's a real life physical reason for everything that I hear that I might feel could be paranormal. But it
Well,
was it
that's
was
what
great.
I've always said over the years. It's always been my number one little motto, and that's is first you must prove what it's not before you can prove what it is. That's the way to look at it. You look at the logical aspects of something first before you say, well, it's something that's not logical or it's something that might be supernatural or paranormal. Before, you got to rule out the logical aspects first. But I'll tell you this, since it's funny you should mention stairs tonight, because one of the worst spiritual attacks I ever had was on a set of stairs one night. A spirit tried to push me down. It was trying to kill me, try to push me down the stairs. And I mean, I could feel this thing on my back, Keith. I mean, I could feel claws in my back. I actually physically struggled with this thing, trying to pull it off of me. It was trying to push me down the stairs. It seems like they know exactly the situation they can get you in sometimes. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing about the Hayes house, I, I never felt any fear, or I was never physically attacked or anything like that. If anything, I just felt the warmth that the two families had for the house, and the fact my empathic abilities led me to understand that Kathleen really wanted a family to buy the house and use it as a family home. She wanted people to have their Thanksgiving and their Christmas dinners cooked in her kitchen and served in her dining room. And actually, when Kathleen owned the house, the family always had Thanksgiving and Christmas at the Hayes house from 1942 up until 1996. That was a family tradition. So that's what she wanted. And I could feel that. I could definitely feel that. But that never happened. Uh, the owner of the next door motel purchased it and turned her kitchen into a bedroom. And so that'll never happen, I don't think, in the future. I guess someone could buy the house for a single family house and,
Mm-hmm.
rebuild the kitchen back on the first floor. But
Your friend Kenny Lord Star Fox is in the chat room. If you want to say hey to him, he's in the house here. Hello, Kenny. Hope you're doing good tonight, bud. And
hello, Kenny. Did
yeah.
anyone have any questions for me about the Hayes house or the vampires dead or alive?
Anybody got any questions for Keith here about vampires or the house he's talking about and all that thing? Please put them out here, and we'll put them up definitely. If you got any
I
questions,
always, when I listen to podcasts, I always have questions because I
oh yeah,
know, most people can
that's
only like go in like one direction. And a lot of times people think, wow, I wish you would have went in the other direction and talked about something I'd like to hear about. So anyway, is that a question? I can't see it. It's too small.
there you go.
Negative.
There, I always say there's no stupid questions, only stupid answers.
Well, like I say, I can't see. If there's a question, I can't see it. So you'll have to repeat it if you can
I'll,
see
I'll,
it.
I'll ask them for you if they come here. Okay, here's one. In your opinion, what role does consciousness play in all of this phenomenon?
Well,
Con-
are you talking about the consciousness of the person who's witnessing paranormal or the consciousness of the ghost or
I think
spirit?
what he's talking about, the one that's witnessing these things. Yeah.
Well, I think that I'm a sane mind, and I think that the paranormal data that I witness a lot of times is with a piece of equipment like a Mel meter or a Obelisk 5. So I I I think if anything, ghosts and spirits will probably want to communicate with someone who believes that they're there. I don't think they'll go out of their way to communicate with someone who thinks that they don't exist, or I don't think they'll communicate with someone who's going to think that they're evil. I mean, right now, if I went on a podcast, say with you tonight, and I just think that you're evil, you probably wouldn't want to talk to me too long. So I think ghosts and spirits are the same way. I think they want to be liked and respect, or at least be treated neutral. So if that's what you mean by consciousness, but every time I've experienced paranormal activity, I've been fully conscious, and I don't do drugs, I don't do alcohol.
I think a lot
So as
of
far as
times,
consciousness,
a
that's the
lot
way
of
I would
times,
look at your answer. Did I answer your question? Do you
yeah,
feel that I answered the question?
I think a lot of times these things kind of feel what your intentions are. Whether your intentions are good or bad, they pick up on these things, and they know whether you're open to it or not. And all that. Somebody's got another question for you. What's your scariest encounter? What was the scariest thing that's ever happened to you? What was it?
Well, I usually don't get too many things that are scary. if anything, probably the scariest thing that happened to me wasn't even paranormal. I got shot at once when I was in the Army, and that was pretty damn scary. But anyway, getting back to the paranormal side, take the Hayes House ghost for people too. The most unsettling thing, I won't say scary, happened. This was before I knew how the Hayes family used the rooms. And I was in what I found out later on was what Pat and Kathleen had used as their bedroom. And I was in there. And when I was in there, I saw uh, three different silhouettes on in the direction of the uh, southwest wall. And then I would look away from my thermal imager. I was using a thermal imager, which just shows you color. So the room was pretty much yellow. And then these silhouettes were kind of like uh, purple or dark blue. So they definitely stood out. And one in the middle would kind of undulate and leave. And so it would go from two to three of these dark silhouettes. And then when I looked in the other corner to see how that corner looked, in that corner there was a almost like a dark 2x4 that went from the floor up to the ceiling. That was either purple or blue. And then I kept looking back from each corner and then looking up from my thermal imager to see if I could see anything. But in the daylight, I couldn't see anything. It just looked like a normal room in both corners, the southeast and also the north or the southwest and the northeast. It looked normal. But when I looked at my thermal imager, it was definitely, there was cold areas. And what I think those cold areas were, the 2x4, I think, was Pat Hayes. They say Pat Hayes was 6'3", and he was very slim. He had like a 28-inch waist. So I think he was showing himself somehow by taking the heat out of the room, so he would appear to be a slim 2x4 that went from the corner, from the floor up to the ceiling. And then I feel when I turned to the other opposite corner on the southwest side of the room, I think the 2 to 3 undulating type silhouettes were Kathleen and Sunshine were the two that stayed. And the one in the middle that was undulating in and out, I think, was Annie Hayes Palmer, which was Pat's mom. And Sunshine was Pat's mom's sister. And of course, Kathleen was Pat's wife. So I have a tendency to take things negatively. And I thought, well, maybe the ghosts of spirits are ganging up on me, and maybe they don't want me to write the book. So I forgot all about the incident until I was ready to write the book. And when I was doing the Hayes House, I would do at least 2 or 3 hour-long paranormal short sessions in each room. And then I would sit down and write for an hour everything I could remember, how I felt, what I saw, things like that. I wanted to be very thorough. So when I went back to write the book, I wouldn't have to draw from memory. I would have it written down. So I did not remember that happening because I was questioning, maybe the ghosts of spirits do not want me to write the book. And I forgot all about that situation until I started to write the chapter, which the chapter was called The Pat and Kathleen Room. And when I started to write that chapter, that's when I remembered about seeing the 3 different silhouettes in the southwest corner of the room, and then the 2x4 dark blue line going up from the northeast corner from the floor to the ceiling. That's when I remembered it. So it was almost like they helped me forget that because they wanted me to go ahead, finish my paranormal research of every room and porch at the Hayes house and write the book. So that was kind of neat in one way. And I feel that I totally mistook them not wanting me to write the book. And I think too many times we think negatively about our paranormal experiences when we really shouldn't.
That's very interesting. Sometimes we can definitely pick up on what they're what they're where they're coming from at on this. I got a
Did
question I
you
want
have
to
any
ask.
questions? I know so far you haven't really asked me too many questions, but did you have any questions about either of the books?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. What is one of your favorite pieces of equipment that you use?
Well, I would say the Obelisk 5B because I've always had good luck with it. Now, I started out with Obelisk 4 back in, I guess, 2011. 2011, that was the first time I purchased any equipment. I had purchased the Obelisk 4 first, but and the millimeter second, but the millimeter arrived before the Obelisk 5. Apparently, back in 2011, the Obelisk 5s were on back order, and I didn't get the Obelisk 5 until it was the second piece of equipment that I got.
Mm-hmm.
But I always had really good amounts of words. Sometimes I don't always understand how the words connect. And I really feel that ghosts and spirits, if their energy is what's choosing the word, there could be a pair of ghosts and spirits just communicating close by, not even talking to me, and might be choosing words. So anyway, I would say the Obelisk 5, and that's because I usually get uh, a lot of data from the Obelisk 5. And I've recently been using phonics and the true and false or yes and no mode. And I don't think too many people know about uh, it's called T or F for true and false, but you can use yes or no also. And it's got green or red. And it's got like a little line that either goes up to green or down to red. So I will consider green to be either um, true or yes. And if it goes down to red, I would consider that to be either false or no. And I've been getting right on the money as far as answers. I'll ask a lot of answers like when I do my paranormal research for the YouTube channel, Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans. I will ask questions like, "Did you like Apalachicola?" And usually the ghosts and spirits who died in Apalachicola will usually answer yes. So and sometimes I'll ask them a question that I know it's a no answer. I'll ask them, "Did you ever visit the moon?" And then I'll get a no. So sometimes I'll ask a far out question just to see if I'll get a no, and I do get a no. So it's been fun using the true and false or yes and no mode on the Obelisk 5. And I just started doing that about maybe less than 6 months ago. And I would say this much phonics. They have a phonic mode, which I hardly ever use because you'll just get sounds. And a lot of times you have to stop and think. Every once in a while, I'll get like a thank you. And the Hayes family and the Buck family and the Gibson family are buried there near the Apalachicola Cemetery. And I had just visited their graves. I don't always have time when I do my paranormal short sessions, but if I do have time, I stop by and visit them before I start. And I just visited their grave, and I think it was them saying thank you for stopping by. And that came in really clear. And a couple of times I've got with phonics, I got what I think is get out or get away. And the first time I got get away, I was standing near a bunch of red ants. And a lot of times the red ants aren't on the surface until there's something to bite. And then they come running. So I moved quickly. And I think that was a warning by the ghosts and spirits to move before you get bitten. So
Oh
I
yeah.
find even with phonics, sometimes phonics, you don't get anything that I would say would be a word. And other times it's right on the money.
I tell you, one of my favorite instruments. I don't know if you're familiar with it. No, somebody asked me that the other day. Is when I asked you what my favorite instrument. I think it would have to be the trifield meter. It's one of the very best scientific instruments out there for gauging spiritual or any kind of energy in the atmosphere around you or whatever may be occurring there. The trifield meter is fantastic. I got another question for you. Let's see. What we got up here? Do you feel like that you may be accidentally opening doorways sometimes in your research?
No, I don't think so. I think that ghosts and spirits can travel back from heaven or wherever they're at their own will. And I think we rely too much on doorways. It would be like us relying on ghosts and spirits to use highways, where if you want to and you're motivated, you could walk across the field. It might be easier to use a highway, but I think ghosts and spirits can travel to and from heaven anytime they want. Their electromagnetic energy, so I don't think they need a portal. Now, if you're talking about interdimensional beings, well, then you might need a portal to get from one dimension to another. But I think if interdimensional beings can travel here, I think they know how to travel between dimensions. I don't think they need uh, some paranormal researcher to accidentally open up a door to allow them in. I think if they want to come here bad enough, they have the technology that they will travel between dimensions. Now, we don't have that technology. If the government has it, they're not sharing it with me.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of things the government's not sharing with us. Definitely, without a doubt. Absolutely. But I feel like and I was telling somebody this the other day, whether you might agree with me or not. But the technology that we have right now is like 100 years or more behind what the government's really got in many aspects. And we need to realize that as well. So there's a lot of that definitely going on out there. Have you ever been? I got a question for you. Have you ever been interested in cryptozoology? Cryptids. Out in the woods and forests and all that. Have you ever looked into that? Any?
Well, I actually think that vampires are probably are cryptids. They fall in other categories too. When I was a kid, I loved that movie that came out that had Bigfoot. I loved that. And as a
Mhm.
kid, I used to on weekends I would go out in the woods where I lived at in Maryland. And I would look for Bigfoot, and I never found any type of tracks or never heard any Bigfoot calls or anything like that. If anything, the only thing I would see would be unusual, twisted. I wouldn't say trees. They were small type wooden type bushes would be twisted in a mangled type way that wouldn't be natural for growing patterns or wouldn't be natural. It's almost like someone had twisted it. And it was on my grandparents' property. And both my grandmother and my grandfather just said, leave it alone. And as I got older, I went ahead and I cut that down because I was going to make it part of the yard. It was that close to where my grandparents lived and where their house was. So I had actually cut it down. And but over the years, it was strange how that I don't know what type of plant you would call it, but it was had long type wooden type branches, and it had been twisted, almost like someone was trying to. I don't know if you remember gimp weaving, which was popular back in the
Like they were
'60s.
turning the crank on it or something, right? I've seen, I've
Well,
seen, I've
they were
seen that.
twisting it in an unnatural way that
Mm,
plant would actually grow, or that little bush would grow.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that was the extent to my uh, cryptid. I've done some
Well,
hunting for
hang out
Bigfoot
with Ken.
recently,
Uh,
but I haven't found
you hang
anything.
out
So,
if you hang out with Kenny and me long enough, we'll get you definitely interested. But he has a great channel on YouTube that does deals mostly with dogmen and lycanthropy and stuff. He calls it midnight lycanthropy. You're probably familiar with it, but we all are definitely interested. I've got a new book coming out very soon called Paracryptology. And in one section, you might like this section. One chapter is titled "Vampires I Have Known." Okay, you might want to be looking for that. So, have you got any plans for any future books coming out, Keith?
well, right now I'm. You might say I've been working on the book since 2020 for the um, 1880 Victorian there in St. Augustine. That was a book in the making. Um, I've had requests from fans to write a book about how I do my paranormal. And
Yeah,
I feel that paranormal research is
you
pretty
could do
much,
you could do some tutoring on it. That would be neat.
well, I look at it this way: everyone has a unique personality, and no one can tell anyone else how to do paranormal research. You have to do it in a way that suits you with equipment that you feel comfortable with. So I don't believe that paranormal researchers can be really taught exactly what and how they should do. They have to do what fits them. And you can pick up bits and pieces from different paranormal researchers. And I think it's always good to grow and learn. But I don't think anyone should do exactly what I do because it may not suit them. It may not fit their personality. So if I do write a book, which I started it, but I haven't finished it yet, uh, I would probably call it something like Paranormal Research My Way, because I don't want to tell people my way is the best way, so you should do paranormal research my way. I don't want to do that because I think that would be wrong. Because everyone has to find their own niche within paranormal research. They have to do what feels good to them. They have to do what they feel is important and what they find rewarding to them as far as paranormal research.
Mhm. Yeah, well, you can't cover the subject kind of broadly, and just say this is the way I do it. You might want to do it differently. That's the way you have to. Everybody's got different techniques and how they want to do stuff like that. Definitely. So, but I was just wondering if you had any idea of any new books coming out anytime soon. But we will definitely be checking these out, and they are available on Amazon. And I think all you got to do is look up the author's name, which would be Keith Evans, right? And you will find those books on Amazon and
The Hayes House, the Hayes
Kindle
House is
too.
only available as an ebook. It's no longer available as a paperback, but Vampires Dead or Alive is available as a paperback on Amazon and ebook on Kindle.
That's good. Okay, we'll tell everybody who's looking for those. Definitely check them out. And you also have a YouTube channel. We put the link up for that. You have a YouTube channel that you have. Um, I I think it was shorts, paranormal shorts, or something like that. What was the name
It's
of it?
called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans.
Short sessions. Okay, there we go. And everybody might want to check that out. Go over there and Give Keith a subscription to it. Subscribe to
It
it.
it's free to subscribe.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Doesn't cost
And I'm
anything.
on Facebook and Instagram if you want to check me out there.
Mhm. There's your link up to your YouTube channel there. Well, appreciate you
All
being
right.
here with us tonight. We will definitely have you back on again. We'll get some more deeper into some more of these discussions and some of
Well, I
your
appreciate you having me. What was the name of your book again that you said was coming out?
no problem at all. And we really enjoyed it. And well, thank you so much for being here tonight. We'll definitely have you back. And we'll get into some deeper discussion on some of your more interesting experiences you've had over the years. Definitely. We'll get into
What was,
that. But appreciate you being here tonight, Keith.
what
And
was the name of your book you said was coming out soon?
it's called paracryptidology. The reason I called it
Okay.
that is once upon a time, cryptozoology and paranormal research they didn't go together that much. Now they do. Now they've been
Right.
kind of meshed together, and that's why I call it paracryptidology. I explained that in the book, but it's about
That's cool.
the subtitle for it is called "Hunting Monsters and Things of Nightmare." So
Wow.
I'm hoping to have it out pretty soon. I'm still working on it. It's still sort of, you know how
That's
it
good.
goes. You still kind of tweak it a little bit before you turn it loose. Yeah. But anyway, well, appreciate you being here, bud. And this has been a fascinating discussion tonight. And well, I will definitely see you tomorrow, Shanti. Thank you for being here, dear, and thank you for your membership and your membership support and your financial support. Thank you so very much. It is very greatly appreciated. And I want to thank everybody else for their support and their memberships and some of the stuff they're doing. This is fantastic. It helps us pay the bills around here, helps keep us going, and that is fantastic stuff. We really appreciate what you're doing there. And Keith, you have a good night, bud, and you take care. And we'll be looking for you again in the future. Okay.
Thanks for
Take
having
care.
me on. Have a good night.
Good night. That's a good guy there, Keith Evans. I hope you enjoyed that. He's got a lot of interesting stories to tell. Absolutely. And thank you again, Chantel. I will see you tomorrow. We'll be talking dark angels and demons. All right. Absolutely. We're going to have a good time tomorrow. We always have a fun time on Chantel's show, definitely. And I want to thank everybody else for being here tonight and for your support. And thank you, Monica and Wizard Moon and Blue Eyed Bandit and Shiro and Gerald Fountain and the list goes on and on. Audio, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's been fantastic, and we appreciate all of your support and for you showing up and being with us here tonight. That's the link for the show tomorrow on Solutions. I love that name, Solution. Great title. Anyway, check that out tomorrow, and we will be back Friday. If the Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. We will be back Friday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Who knows what I may, you might want to tune in. Who knows what I may just come up with Friday night, okay? Maybe another surprise. You never know. We had a great show with the girl and her gong Friday night. Who knows who might show up again then, you never know. Well, I appreciate you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you so very, very much for your support. And hang in there. And remember, you know, fear over faith, faith over fear. Okay, fear is the enemy of faith. Faith over fear. Fear no evil out there. Okay, don't let's not live in fear. Let's enjoy what we're doing. Let's go out and get things done the right way. Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And until we get together again, my friends, Godspeed and ciao. The hunt has begun. Hunting the shadows.